Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Jerome Reed, and I just want to welcome you to Influencers Impact. This podcast has been a huge encouragement to so many people. So if you've been listening on Spotify or Apple Music, please make sure to leave a review. And if you're watching here on YouTube, I would love it if you can leave us a comment. Now in this moment, you're going to be watching an incredible interview. So I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. What's going on, everyone? My name is Jerome Reed, and I am joined by Jason Ballard, husband, pastor, so much more. You probably will recognize him if you ever done Youth Alpha at your church or at your school. And Jason, he's also currently pastoring in Vancouver, Canada, at a church called The Way. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's early for you, but it's truly an honor that you're here.
It's so good, man. I'm so pumped to be here. You keep saying it's early, but I've got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And so, man, we've been up for 4 hours. Like we've got half the day done, man.
So honestly, let's get into the first question about that. Cause I know you said you have kids. What does an average day look like for you?
Oh, dude. I don't even know how to describe an average day, but we've got an office space here in Vancouver. There's a few organizations operating out of this office space. And there's the church that we've started together. And then there's a ministry we have called the Church Leaders Network. Wow. And the Church Leaders Network is a Canadian ministry. And we're just trying to build resources and support for pastors and leaders across Canada. We do a podcast called the Canadian Church Leaders Podcast. Amazing. And then we also run a ministry for a guy called Daryl Johnson. And so he's a pastor, and if he's 72 years old, I think he's the best preacher in Canada. So a few of us have just got around him to get his resources out there. We work with ministries like Worship Central and a bunch of others. And then there's also a creative company that works out of here called X Creative, and they work alongside organizations. So we've got this really unique office space where we're producing content for our church, The Way, but then also for other churches and organizations. And it's just such a compelling team. So most days we're coming into this space, and, you know, before COVID, man, I traveled a bunch to speak at conferences and events. And to be honest, I don't miss it at all. Like I miss running into people like you, but I'm a way healthier person just living at home and not in hotel rooms at all. But what we've been doing is producing content from this space. And it's not the same as being in the room, but you know, in an average day, somebody's recording a sermon, somebody's recording a podcast, and someone's producing content, and it's just creative meetings and then some pastoral meetings. And so every day's a little bit eclectic. Yep. And in the evenings, we're running things like alpha and small groups. So last night, my wife and I lead a small group on Zoom with people from all over Vancouver. So it's pretty eclectic, but I live 5 minutes from here, or so like a 30-minute walk, 20-minute walk, I should say. My gym is like a 4-minute walk from my house. My favorite coffee shop is somewhere between those places. So most days I'm just kind of walking around this area of Vancouver and then partnering with people to create good content that serves the church.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. Like those are a lot of things that I think a lot of people wish they had going on, but the fact that you're doing stuff to help other churches and other ministry leaders in places, I think is huge to be able to do that. Now, did you always want to be a pastor? Was that something you knew from right at the beginning?
No. So I did my undergraduate degree at SFU. So Simon Fraser University is there's two big universities out here in BC. There's UBC, University of British Columbia, and then Simon Fraser. So I went to Simon Fraser. I studied business, and I was doing like a commerce degree. And then by my third year, I was spending most weekends speaking at like youth conferences and churches. And I was like, okay, what do I do with this? Like, what's going on here? And it wasn't like a painful wrestle with the Lord. It was just like an interesting thing. So I ended up switching my degree from business to English. So I ended up doing a business minor, and I just studied English lit. So I was just able to like learn from, you know, good writers and other people. And I loved the tutorials, and I was learning so much from my friends from SFU who weren't Christians, but wrestling with these big ideas. Yeah. And so I finished my degree there. And then somewhere in that journey, I realized I had found myself leading a ministry called Campus Fire. And it doesn't exist anymore. But when I was in high school, I began wanting to we started a prayer group in our school, and we began doing outreach to our friends and stuff like that, creating discussion groups for people to explore faith, life, and God, similar to what we're doing with Alpha. Yeah. And the ministry that supported us was called Campus Fire. And they gave us toolkits and support and a conference to train students to reach their friends in their school and to live on mission. Okay. And so I ended up leading that organization for a few years. And then as I was leading that organization, I approached Alpha and said, hey, do you guys have a tool that we could put in the hands of high school students to help them reach their friends?
Yeah.
And Shayla Visser, who leads Alpha Canada, who I think is like the best leader in Canada. She's just absolutely incredible. And she said, no, we don't. And we don't want to make one, but will you come and work with us? And I was just so impressed by her leadership. And I just so loved the DNA and ethos of Alpha. I had done Alpha with my friend before, like Alpha with Nicky Gumbel, like just the guy talking in the pulpit.
Yeah.
And I'd done it with my friend Jared from high school, and I just loved it so much. And I just was like, I want to be like Nicky Gumbel. I want to be like these Alpha guys. And so I took the job, and then we just began to like scheme and collaborate together. And then I found myself kind of caught up in ministry to the local church. And I realized that actually leading a prayer group in high school every week was kind of my training. So every week we'd go and we'd pray together, and we'd lead this prayer group, in a group from like 40 people to about 60 people, praying in this classroom before school. And that's kind of how I learned how to lead people towards mission, towards Jesus. Yeah. And I think in my undergraduate, I realized I should lean into ministry. And then early on doing ministry with Alpha and Campus Fire and speaking, I realized I need to do this in the local church. So for me, it became really clear really fast that I don't want to travel and talk about ministry. I want to do it on the ground. And I'm just so convinced that local churches really do, like, they are the building blocks that can bring renewal to a city, a community, and a nation. And so much of what we're doing here is living out this dream of being like, what would it look like for a church to house a vision to serve and support other churches?
Oh, that's good.
So that's what we're living into now, which is just that wrestling of being like, we have this two-part calling to like plant a vibrant church here in Vancouver, to make disciples in this city, to reach people far from God in this city, to wrestle with all the questions that come with that. And then to create a team within that context that has a mission to give away resources to other churches. So that's what we're living into right now.
Dude, that is something that I think we all can do or chase after, because there's a lot of people asking questions and trying to figure out, what's the meaning of life? Why am I here? And my youth group right now, we're currently watching Youth Alpha, and a lot of kids are going through this process of learning who God is for them. Not knowing that it's not, their parents' religion or it's a parent thing, but to understand who God is for that person, for themselves as an individual. And which is incredible that I'm having this conversation with you right after us continuing the Alpha. But I wanted to ask a question that relates to what you've been saying just now, and also something that I've been noticing in the world around us. And it's this term that people like to use, culture carrier. Which you actually, I don't even know if you remember this conversation, but I sat in on the first talk I sat in on for you. You were talking about the culture shift and things that you saw that were going to happen in the future. And you had this conversation in 2018, and it's like so key for where we are right now. But in your opinion, what do you see as a culture carrier? Your definition.
Oh, man. I guess the culture is a hard thing to define, isn't it? Like culture is like this sort of like otherness that is so real and we all experience, but is sometimes not clearly articulated and is just beneath the surface. I think like every person and then collection of people carries a culture. So your family has a culture. Your family's part of a broader family that carries a culture. And those cultures are expressed in like the things that you don't even have to tell people to do that they're going to do. Let me give you an example. There are families that carry a culture of hospitality. And there are actually entire like people groups and nations that carry the culture of hospitality, and it's beautiful. There's parts of Canada that carry culture of hospitality. You go out East Coast to Atlantic Canada, man, there's the culture of hospitality. No one is going around saying, hey, you've got to make sure if you meet somebody who looks lost that you should help them. They do it because in their culture, like they've picked up the culture. I think, and then that happens in a church. Every church has a culture, and the best leaders are in the driver's seat shaping that culture. They can name it, they can see how to curate it and support it. You can't manipulate it, but you can fuel it.
That's
and
right.
The stories you tell, the things that you say, the things you put your energy towards. So I'll give you an example in the context of our church. We want to have a culture of of generosity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're like generous with our money, generous with our time, generous the way we serve and support other churches.
Yeah.
So we really intentionally, like, we actually look at the year ahead and say, hey, how are we going to fuel that culture? So how's that's going to inform the sermons that we preach, the small group curriculum that we have? How are we going to train and envision our small group leaders, our staff? Like,
Yeah.
I've realized that if you can't live into the values with the three people you're living with and working with, then it's not going to trickle out to the third, fourth, and fifth tier. So there's cultures in organization. We can talk a lot about that. And then there's cultures in the city and broader. And then there's obviously cultures that cross generations. You can speak of the culture of Gen Z or the culture of millennials.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what a culture carrier is, to be honest, but I know that we all are carrying a culture. And the question is, do you know which culture you're carrying and how it's affecting you and those around you?
Yeah, dude, that's a good answer. And I think with what you were saying at the end, like, I don't know what it is, because it's true. It's so many things to so many different people. Because I always say, you know, we were created to create. Like, the ultimate creator, God himself, created us to do his work and to create new things. And there's no other version of you. You're it. So I can't copy what you're doing, because I can copy what you're doing on the outside, but I can't copy what you're doing on the inside. I don't know your heart. I don't know who you are, and vice versa.
One way to read the Sermon on the Mount is as a kingdom culture manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jesus kind of saying, what is the kingdom of God like?
Yeah.
And he lived it like through his whole life.
Yeah.
But the Sermon on the Mount, among other teachings of Jesus, is like a cultural manifesto. And I think what you were saying is so brilliant, man, where you're like, we carry like you got to do you, like there's something in your makeup and your wiring. And then there's something about submitting that you to the kingdom culture versus the culture of this world, or whatever metaphor you want to use. You know, and I think that there's something about one being the driving force in your life and the other submitting to that. I don't think it's wrong to have a redemptive view of culture. I've got a real, like, consistently redemptive view of culture. It's not like, you know, if my kids want to listen to certain music, obviously we're really conscious of what the messaging is and all that kind of thing, but we're always trying to find bridges between, like, things that they're enjoying with their friends at school in a healthy way. So we're trying to have a redemptive view so they can participate, but also be other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And then as you mature and grow, like my perspective is always like to look for redemptive themes and ideas, whether it's in movies or arts.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be a point in which you are not, how do I even word this? You're not impressed by the culture. You're not, like, you can appreciate it. You can be inspired by it at times, but it's not the king in your life. And for me, like, I struggle, like, with daily Bible reading, but like, I just out of discipline, like just this morning at the gym, again, pop in my headphones, I use the Dwell app. It's a great Bible app. And for me, literally this morning, like, I'm listening to some Advent readings and then some teaching through Jonah. And I'm just trying to go, okay, God, like, the story of Jonah is such a different culture. Like, for example, for Jonah, his culture, in the story of Jonah, what it's saying is that your sins actually affect other people.
Yeah.
Like, he's on the boat. And I'm like, then I think to myself, oh, the culture around me says that your actions only affect you. And I want to submit to the culture of the kingdom that says when we yield our lives to God, it affects others. When we don't submit our life to God, it does affect others.
Yeah.
And I have to, like, subvert and unplant the cultural narrative that says it's just you, and then replant that kingdom culture piece and let that inform my life.
Yeah. And that's the key thing. And if we can understand that, like, as leaders, pastors, entrepreneurs, wherever we find ourselves, we can understand that what we do affects other people. So when we submit to God and his ways or his leadership, that would also affect other people if we're doing what we're called to do.
Jerome, tell me what when you talk about culture carrier, what do you have in mind? Like, you're a smart guy, dude. You're articulate. I want to know what you think, man.
Yeah, I really think of it as, so I go to the gym as well, and that's always an illustration that I like to use. So, like, for me personally, if you give me 2 10-pound dumbbells to hold in my hand, I can carry that for a long period of time. I won't boast, but I could probably go a good half hour just holding those in my hand, no problem.
Probably a little longer than I can.
Maybe. But if you give me two 65-pound dumbbells to go walk around the gym with, I will struggle. I will have a really hard time. I will probably only last a couple seconds, and then I'm just gonna have to let go because I can't do it. And the reason why I explain that is I think you have to be in a space that you're comfortable with to know what you can carry and to know what you can deal with. So for me, I know I can handle a certain limit of things, but I had to work through it. So at some point, when I started going to the gym, I never started off curling 50s. I probably started curling 5s, and then I worked my way up until where I am today. And I think when it comes to culture, we have to look at it in a way kind of like that of, okay, this is what I understand it to be now. But as I get older or as I grow or as I mature, I think I'll understand more that I can hold on to and be able to show other people. So if I think right now in the year that we're in, with everything going on and the church having to understand we have to shift what we used to do, not changing our message, but changing the method of what we do, and understanding that if we keep the message the same, the culture can shift all at once. But if the message is secure and it's the thing that we're keeping, like that's what we keep at the forefront of our minds, the culture can change all at once. But if we just keep saying, this is how it is, this is what Jesus taught us, this is what we want to do, I believe if we carry that, then we can help other people who are struggling along the way, if that makes sense.
I love that, dude. Tim Keller talks about the idea of being, I think it's Keller, it might be Tyson, talking about counterculture for the common good.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important, like sometimes it's like counterculture for its own sake. But it's like counterculture in submission to Jesus for the good of the city. And like the idea is, I love thinking about evangelism and reaching people far from God. And I think it's an important conversation, obviously, with that. But part of our mission is also to live in the city for the welfare of the city. And so God sets apart a people to live in his ways. And my mentor, Daryl, he gave this example in the teaching of Jesus on salt and light. And if like, so salt is a preserving agent. So if somebody went towards like the meat, like let's say it was fish that was packed with salt and the meat had gone rotten, you would never blame the fish. You would blame the salt. Like why wasn't it packed well with salt? Or if it was, and this is self-evident, but I've never thought about it this way until I heard him say this. If the lights went off and it was dark, you would say, where was the light? Not what's with that dang darkness. And so he presented this idea that as it goes with the church, so it goes with the city. And so it's like when the church is thriving and healthy, it actually brings hope and healing to the city around it. And that's a very different perspective. And I think I'm still wrestling through that, trying to understand the implications of it. One of the implications, if that's true, is that when things are crumbling, we don't blame the culture. We look inward and say, what's happened in my life, in my heart, and in the church. And saying, and that's a different view, because sometimes we've taken the view of like pointing the finger at the culture, saying, look what you've done. And I think that part of the kingdom ethic is to say, God, cause us to flourish so that it caused the city to flourish. And there's other dynamics. There's definitely a dynamic by which God gives over a culture to their own desires. And I don't want to oversimplify it, but it definitely does change the posture of ownership a little bit.
Yeah, it really does. And it's, even if I go to the illustration I gave with the dumbbells, I'm not blaming the dumbbells for being too heavy. Oh, it's your fault.
Yeah.
It's too heavy. I got to learn how to grow in my strengths to be able to carry it to where I need to go.
To lift that weight. I love that, man. I appreciate that a ton.
And I think I'm going to use your words to help reiterate what you were just saying, because you said these words 2 years ago. You might have said them before.
Dude, where was this? Where did I say this? Where was this?
So you said this at Change Conference. I believe. No, was it Change? Yes, you said this at Change Conference in Etobicoke, Ontario, and you had a conversation, seminar about culture shift. And you said these words, and I think it just relates with what we were just talking about now. You said the growth of the kingdom of God is a forest, not a chia pet.
Oh, yeah.
As a culture, we live in a microwave culture and not a crock pot type of culture.
Oh man, I must have really liked the metaphors back then.
I love that, man. I really do. The kingdom of God is a
Kind.
forest. It's not a chia pet.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a forest, not a chia pet. I wonder what I was trying to get at. I mean, it really does resonate. I think what I was probably thinking about with ministry and discipleship making,
Yeah.
we really listen, the stories we celebrate is this church was planted and a year later it's at this number.
Yeah.
And depending what they're comparing it to, for some people, if it's at 50, that's incredible. In some cities, if church is planted, I won't say specific parts of the States, it's man, 2000 week 1,
Yeah.
and that's chia pet stuff. And it's not fake. It's not fake. Like chia pets are a real plant.
Yeah.
It's just chia pets don't have the ability to bring sustenance and lasting change for generations. Like a forest, the picture is man, this slow growth. But when I think about a tree and a network of trees, there is this deep growth beneath the surface. It's man, the storm can come and that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But then the cool thing about that forest is literally the way the ecosystem works is that these trees provide canopy coverage. They actually literally provide safety for infant trees, infant plants, other animals to find shelter. And I think the kingdom of God is like a forest. And I think the challenge is for the church in Canada right now, and probably other places, but I can't speak it, is do we know how to make a disciple?
Yeah.
One person.
Yeah.
Who's coming to know Jesus and then submitting different parts of their life to him and his kingdom. And as a result, the kingdom culture is invading his or her life and those around them. Yeah. And sometimes I'm a church guy. So I like Sunday mornings. We're doing online right now. We do worship and preaching and different elements. And sometimes we can do that hoping it's just all the broad stuff and miss, are there individuals actually journeying, and are those things contributing to individuals' journey? And I just think for ministers and followers of Jesus to think forest versus chia pet just changes our activities. If you're trying to actually grow a forest, you just would do things differently. Yeah. You would just probably cultivate the ground differently. You'd plant different types of fruit. You wouldn't stress if one didn't work. You know what I mean? With my chia pet, 3 days in, if it's not working, I'm stressed.
Yeah, that's right, man.
I'm stressed. I've lost this thing. I think that mentality just is man, I got to remember more though, what I was thinking what did I say? Do you remember anything more? What did I even mean? I don't know.
Honestly,
does that sound right?
I have a lot of stuff. You were talking about how, in 2018, you were saying you really feel if you're a youth pastor that the youth ministry is going to go into a digital age where it's going to be less of, what we are used to and a lot more online things. So social media is going to be a big factor. So you said that way before this shift actually took place, not just for a small parts of places in the world, but it seems like everyone has to do things more online than before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting.
And you were even mentioning the opposite side of being careful that we're not giving people so much to do online that they're overwhelmed and they don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's such a challenge. I want to encourage people to there's so much people being online's the future. And it's yeah, it is. It's a big deal. And we should try, we should be trying way more things and building teams around it. And then at the same time, what about online is the future? The task hasn't changed. It's still even with youth groups, it's the basics are pray for kids. Yep. Show up regularly. If it's Tuesday nights and you run a youth group, one of the most powerful things you can do is be there every Tuesday night. Yeah. And then show up randomly in their life. Reach out to them, call them. Yeah, man. Pray for them, be there regularly, a consistent person, and then show up randomly in their life, call them, how you doing, take an interest. Now, listen, you can do that online. You can do that by mail if you want. I don't know. I'm just saying, throughout the ages, we've been able to figure out how to do this. And then you just use the tools that are there and not to be afraid of the tools that are there and not to idolize. The tools aren't the point. The tools are just the way. So it's man, I think we're so far behind on the online content game. I've been thinking a lot about with online content. I think back then I was aware of the statistics that were saying that students were spending anywhere between 6 to 10 hours on screens. Yeah. And now it's not just students. It's across the board. Yeah. And then I was thinking about the formative effect of the content you take in. Now, the medium itself has a formative effect, and that's why we have to like always renegotiate our relationship with our phones and our media. And that's why like digital fasts and Sabbath rhythms around renegotiate your relationship with your media, and even people choosing to abstain altogether. I get that, and we need to actually tell those stories and celebrate it. On the flip side is within that space, the reality is most people are watching that amount of content per day, especially as it gets younger and younger. The question is, who's contributing kingdom culture content into those threads?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, man, I just think we should, can I just have a tangent with you, bro?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay, here's the tangent. Sometimes I'm nervous that we as followers of Jesus in the church, maybe you've never experienced this, but we don't give enough space for people to try things and fail.
Wow.
And so I guess what I mean is like, it's like social media is classic. Like if you want to like overcook every piece of content and it has to be perfect, you'll never be able to thrive in social content. It's too expensive. And it's just like, there's a quantity factor to it to get in people's threads. There's like a youth pastor out on the East Coast, and he's throwing up content. He's been doing it for years. And I'm just so proud of him for doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's had a few videos that hit, and like, but it's not like he hasn't exploded as this like YouTube sensation, but for his students and other youth groups and other students across Canada, around the world, it really makes a difference. And I think we should be cheerleaders. Like, man, I'm just proud of you for giving this podcast a go, man.
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean? Like I think you will find great success, but I just think it's like, I think there's a narrative people go, okay, yeah, everyone's starting a podcast now. It's like, well, what else are we going to do? I don't know. We'll try. And then maybe, bro, you'll do this for a year, and then you'll come up with a better idea. Like,
yeah, sure.
You'll be like, oh, I listened to Ballard's podcast. I've got a way better idea. And if we can just kind of like get over ourselves and be cheerleaders for one another. And I think that was kind of the hardest, like, guys, go after, like, take chances in that digital space. Yeah. Don't be afraid of being awkward, take some risks, and then figure out, I think the big piece is figure out how to tell an honest, authentic story. The biggest concern that I have about us entering the digital space is that we only know how to like show the highlight reel in that space. Yeah. And I feel like, listen, man, I don't know, like I don't post on Instagram very often, but let's say you follow me. I don't know if you do or not. Yeah. Don't answer the question. Don't answer the question. It's too embarrassing for me to find. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if you did, you'd probably think Jay's just doing pretty good 7 days a week. Because I'm not posting about not wanting to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not posting when my daughter's in the middle of the night is crying. I'm like, I don't want to do this right now, Lord. Like, and like, you know, I'm not posting, man, when I just feel depressed.
Yeah.
And some people are better at that than me, but it's like, the problem is I'm trying to learn how do I tell the whole story? And I don't know. And I'm looking to other people to tell a broader story that's more holistic, and people who are more savvy in that space. Because I think students need, and there are some people who just do such a good job. And, but we need more in that space, being like, here is my journey towards Jesus. I'm not just giving you like little preaches and axioms. I'm actually letting you into my honest discipleship journey. Yeah. Anyways, I haven't seen that. I can't wait to see people do more of that. I don't know how, so it's easy for me to talk about, but I'm still asking the question, how do I show the honest me, you know, so I can present a real, and I think that's why we use digital, but we actually have to build real communities.
Yeah, we do.
And I think sometimes we go social media, and that's an important space, but I think what this new wave of engagement is with things like Zoom, it's not mass market. It's a closed open network. So you create these open platforms can create closed loops. Yeah. And so I think like the idea of small groups, it's like everyone's like, oh, everyone's tired of Zoom and all that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I really do think like we're aware that kids are busier than they've ever been, or like in my church, we have small groups for all ages. When we launch in person post-pandemic, we'll keep online small groups. Because we live in the gig economy. So people are traveling for work more than ever. So more people than ever are like doing multi different things for work, which means they're in and out of the city. They're doing different things. That's part of it. People are busier. Transportation can be an issue in an urban context. Spaces for big enough groups can be a challenge. So we're going to do in person, but we're also going to have online. And same with Alpha, dude. We've been doing Alpha online, and it's just been blowing my mind. Like, it's really working, man. And we can chat a lot about it, but it's really working. People far from God, finding community, exploring honestly. And so we'll launch Alpha in person. Like, nothing quite replaces having like food across the table, but we're going to keep Alpha online. So those things for us are here to stay until there's better things and better ideas. We just don't be precious about it. But that's definitely for us a space that we want to continue to grow in.
That's exactly it. Now I won't take up too much of your time, but I do want to, I do have a couple more questions, but I do want to first say, thank you again for what you've been, pouring into me and for the audience that are going to be listening to this, because this stuff is just, in my opinion, is gold. And I think it's conversations that we need to have more of just in general, for us to be able to hear what other people are doing. And like you said, with social media, we post the highlights, but we don't post the lowlights. Like no one has time to filter hearing your baby cry like that. Like what's the point of that?
No.
But to even be able to be vulnerable and have a conversation, say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't get it. I don't understand, but I'm sure I'm going to learn along this journey. So I just want to thank you for your.
Oh, dude, you're very kind. Jerome, I don't know why I want to say this today, but like, I thought I would be a way better Christian by the time I was a lead pastor of a church.
Wow.
I just thought by then, and I'm just still like fumbling through this, man.
Yeah.
But I believe Jesus is alive. I struggle with doubt sometimes. I believe he's alive. I see how he changes lives, and I want to give myself to be part of it. And I'm not where I hoped I would be, but I'm not where I was,
Exactly.
And I see his grace at work in my life. And I wish people would believe pastors when they say that we really don't have it together, but I'm sincerely following Jesus. I really want to become like him. I really want to let him work on my heart. And I thought it would be more like a microwave, but it's feeling a lot more like a slow cook crock pot. And I did think it was going to be more like a chia pet thing. Like before I became a pastor, I'm just going to be like, man, that's when I'm going to stop like scrolling on, wasting half an hour on Instagram. That's when I'm going to like start reading more stuff. And that's when my sermon prep's going to get way better. Like all these things. I thought, and it doesn't magically happen. It feels like a lot of like baby steps. And the biggest issue is just getting over my own insecurities and my own self. And that's the stuff that God's doing inside of me. I think he doesn't care a ton about me doubling my commentary intake, but actually like doubling my dependency on him. So my ego doesn't get in the way and my insecurities don't get in the way of actually following him.
That's good, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's going to help a lot of people, even someone like me, who I don't know what God has for me, if I'm going to be a lead pastor or not, but I do know there's been moments where I'm like, I wish someone told me 10 years ago that where I'm at now, I'm still growing. Because I thought, oh, sure, when I'm an adult, I'll understand God way more. I'm here going, I still don't know everything, and that's okay.
Yeah. Like with the Bible, for example, we thought, there's going to become a place where the Bible just becomes my answer key. But what I'm learning more and more is it becomes the venue by which I can wrestle with God. I learned that from Tim Mackey on the Bible Project. And he talked about the Bible being a place you can go to wrestle with a God who's not always easy to understand. Yeah. Yes, it brings really clear truth. And I'm not saying it's like all like a riddle. There's really clear, principles and commands and messaging through the whole narrative that's consistent, that gives us a way of life that models Jesus, and it's good for doctrine and teaching all this stuff. But there is this point which I thought the whole thing would just become simple, and I'm like, maybe it's actually still inviting me to go and meet with God, who I can't fit in my box. And it's constantly blowing my mind. Bro, what is the dream for your life, man? You're a youth pastoring now. You got this podcast. Are you going to be a pastor, or are you going to be a lead pastor one day? Are you going to be a youth pastor forever? What's the dream, man?
So like, for one, I wanted to be an actor. So ministry was not my thing. I thought ministry for me was being an actor, doing shows, movies, and then sharing the gospel with my cast and, other people. But then God kind of brought me into this position of, hey, you went to Bible college, try out being in ministry. So I literally took my first job interview, my interview that I had, started at this church, was there for a period of time and transitioned. And then I spent another period of time in ministry in Ottawa there. And I felt like I was really growing in ways of, I'm still a youth pastor, but I was growing in ways of like not associate or assistant, but I was just starting to care more about things that weren't just youth or student related.
Sure. Yeah.
And, and that's a story there. But then where I'm at today, God opened up a door for me to be an assistant pastor, where I'm still overseeing youth and young adults, but I'm also helping out with media and socials and all these other things. So the realm's
that's cool
out there. But right now, I think the dream for me is to just continue to do what I feel God is leading me towards. So this podcast was something that I never thought I'd ever do. But then the idea came that okay, COVID just hit, everything's shut down. No one's really traveling. No one's really doing anything. A lot of people are at home. So why not try to find ways to connect with people all over the world, if possible, that are at home and just have a conversation about who they are, what they're going through. So maybe this might be something, I don't know. I don't know if acting in this will continue on or if I'll just be a pastor or be a lead pastor that does all of it. I have no idea, but I consider myself an anomaly. Like, I don't think I'm just gonna fit in one area. I think I might be in different areas because I started a clothing line. I do online personal training. So it's a lot of different things that I do.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
I think that everyone's wiring is so unique, and you'll know when you need to focus, you know?
Yeah.
And you'll know when actually I'm thriving because of these different dynamics, and it has to do with your wiring and seasons of life. And I love that, man. And I just think, you know, I asked the question because I wanted to hear you process it a little bit and learn from you. Just know more about your life. But it's like, it rarely is just like, yep, this is the one thing and it's just this or this. I love all that stuff, man. I just really want, it's inspiring for me to hear, and we're cheering you on.
Thank you.
And I think it's important things you're doing, man, you know, helping people like mind, body, spirit, arts, all those things. It's really compelling, man. Yeah. And I'm encouraged by this time with you.
No, I really appreciate it. And I just want to thank you again for this time, and know that I'm praying for your family and the ministry that you're a part of. And I know travel, I mean, I know I can travel in Canada, but I'm just going to wait for everything to clear up even more. But hopefully one day.
Come visit, man. We'd love to have you. Come spend a few days in Vancouver and hang out in our office space. We'd love to have you, and you can like teach our media team some stuff that you know, and maybe you can grab some things from them and we all win.
Yeah, who knows, man? Definitely. Last question that I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to end here. And it's along the lines of, and this one's a little fun. You can answer however you wish. It's along the lines of filming, preparing yourself. So I just want to say, first off, when I watch Youth Alpha and I see you and Ben in these videos, I'm here going, okay, how did these guys prepare themselves to look good on camera, to know what they're talking about, to do it so creatively? So my question to you is this, because I don't know if you had a background in film or anything like that, but how did you prepare filming, like, or to be in front of a camera and to speak in a way that's engaging?
Thanks for asking, dude. It's a funny question. I don't really get to talk about it very much. It's like, it's like most people, it's not the same as preaching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I'll give you like a medium-sized answer because I think it's really fun to chat about. We did the first one in 2013. So 2017, we did the one that's out now, the Alpha U series, but we did a whole version of it in 2013. Yeah. And at that point I had been preaching for years. And so we started writing the scripts, and we wrote them like preaching to youth groups. And so Ben and I were preaching at like 1 or 2 youth groups per week. And we would go to Starbucks afterwards and like change the notes, preach it the next night. And then like with the feedback, and that became the basis for the scripts of Alpha. And they were all based off of Nicky Gumbel's content. And then what happened is, as we started the storyboarding it, some of our instincts around preaching didn't apply to writing film scripts. And some of my isms when I preached that I thought was helping me weren't translating on screen. And so there was a big learning curve. And so the one we did in 2013, and we're proud of it, but it's like, we worked really hard on the scripts, but we teleprompted them, and we would be in the studio and reading off a teleprompter. We'd practice the lines, and we had a director, but you know, it's our lines, but then we read it and it wouldn't feel right. And so we'd have to like pause and be like, we got to change the script. And like, it was really stressful and unhealthy. So it was like, for like the 3 months of filming, we were putting stress on the whole crew, because there's like 15 crew involved, and they're pausing. That's an expensive pause. Like, you've been involved. So it's expensive, and it adds stress. And it means that you can't, you know, put as much finesse into it, because we're trying to get the script right. Because we realized as we were saying it in the studio, like the script we kind of wrote for a stage. Okay. But what actually happens in the studio. And then back then my preaching was like, hey, what's up, you guys? How you doing? And then you'd be in a studio, and like, if this is the frame, you're like, this little movement is like power. Yeah. Yeah. You know? And so I would say we came to the end of the 2013 one, and me and Ben were like honored to be part of it, but disappointed in our performance. And so when we had the chance to do it again in 2017, we made some big decisions. One is that we were going to be mentally and physically healthier so that we could handle those days.
Yeah.
Because they're long days. But then also we made a decision to like double the investment in the script and then to memorize them.
Wow.
So we didn't want a teleprompter.
Yeah.
So, and then we worked with an acting coach to help us with script memorization.
Yeah.
And a good acting coach doesn't teach you to act like someone you're not.
Mhm.
It helps you to actually be present with the script.
Yeah.
So we were able to actually to connect deeper with our own lines. And then there was like moments that we're really proud of where we're telling a story like about my brother fighting cancer. And I feel like I was actually able to look down the barrel like I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And tell you a true story from my life. And I wasn't just rehearsing a script. If the teleprompter was in front of me and I was reading the lines, you could tell it wasn't from my heart.
Yeah.
So we had to do the work, like we had to do triple the work to get the scripts to a place, to memorize them, and then leave them behind.
Yeah.
So we could actually look down the barrel and tell people something from our heart. And then it was also like the first time I came to the end of filming in 2013, and I was like depressed for a year because I just burned out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it was like, you know, because the moment we started filming, all the healthy rhythms in my life dropped: prayer, alone time, because we're doing like such long days.
Yeah.
And then gym, all that stuff. And so we just decided that through the whole filming process, we're still going to be in the gym. We're going to create boundaries. I had to like destroy most of my like extracurricular life so that I had like time with my family and some good rest. And there's still like a lot of exhausting, tough days. But what was dope, man, is the whole crew that we traveled around the world with was such good people. That honestly, man, like we were in such stressful situations, such painful situations, but everyone had resolved to create a culture of like, hey, we're going to rest well, but we're never going to complain when things are hard. And then that brought a vibe to the set and the crew that
huge.
Everyone had each other's back. It was such a positive, like we know the mission was clear and everyone was going after excellence. So we'd be like in the desert in Israel, burning hot, and not one person complains.
Wow.
And like it took, you know, we wanted to get in 2 hours. It took 6 hours, but everyone's like, we're here. We know why we're here. Let's take a pause and we're going to get back out there and do it. And it was just like, and so the biggest contributing factor was the team around you to making it good. So all those things we did behind the scenes, great. But at the end of the day, it was like being in an environment where everyone was committed to this culture of like, we're going to work hard. So anyways, that's a real long answer.
No, that's great.
Thanks for answering or for asking.
I love that. It makes me just think again with how much goes on behind the scenes that no one knows. Cause all people see is the curriculum. They see you guys, they see everyone else, and then that's it. They assume you guys did one take and there you go. But it's acting, or not even just acting, but even doing something on film. It takes a lot of work and it does drain you.
Yeah. And Dan Stewart and Gordy Cochran, who are like the director, producer, they're just such world-class guys.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that were helping us actually make these decisions and see the difference it can make. And it is always a ton of people. And Ben and I get like a disproportionate amount of the credit. But we like literally inherited Alpha, which was already in place, made by a church in England.
Yep.
And then we got to work with this crew like Gordy, Dan, Daryl, Dan, all these incredible people. And even the sound guy, Tim Archer, just thinking about him, he's such a beauty, like this incredible team. And then we get to hear the stories like, bro, we get to, on my Instagram DMs, like I gave my life to Jesus. My life was transformed on Alpha from all over the world. Yeah. And so I always, so we filmed in 2017. So like 3 years ago, we released it. And I still have a text thread with like the director, producer, and we'll send each other a couple like, you know, hey, this is what a message I got in my inbox today.
Wow.
And, you know, I thought when we did Alpha that a bunch of other people would go, if Ben and Jay can do that, we can do that.
Yeah.
And that there would be like this influx of incredible resources into the kingdom. And there have been some incredible resources. Yeah. But I think that, and there's some great ones. Like there's a youth series called Praxis I recommend. There's something out of Ireland called NUA, which is a great apologetic series. It's so good. You guys can check it out. Like good resources.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought there'd be even more. And I think the reality is producing Alpha was, and I'm not exaggerating, it was 10 times the work that I thought it was.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
Like 10, you know, and because you've been on set and stuff, you know, it's like, and a good sermon is often like 10 times the work than you think it was.
Yeah, it's true.
And I just think, that I hope that, man, if one person was listening to this, realized that creative ideas that's in their heart to bring life and hope and the messages to other people is worth doing the work. You go to a donor and ask for money, they say no. Refine the script or the pitch, refine the proposal, go to another donor, ask for feedback. Hey, I know you said no, but what was it about it that didn't resonate with you? Get it better. Like, don't give up, because it's, your idea is worth it. I don't know your idea, but theoretically, like I really believe that there's good ideas out there that can make such a difference in the kingdom and people's lives. And it's probably 10 to 100 times harder than you'll think it'll be, but you're going to do great. You're going to do great, and it's worth it. And what else are you going to do?
Exactly.
What else are we doing? Give yourself to it. And then like for us, 2013 version, it didn't hit like we hoped it. Like it didn't, but we did it. We released it, and it impacted lives. So you just release it, and then you get better. And that was a real honor to be able to do that. And then, dude, the craziest thing about this journey, talking about it, is I thought that all those years in film were like a distraction.
Wow.
From my calling to be a pastor.
Yeah.
And then I planted church September 2020.
Yeah.
And all we're doing is producing film to do our Sunday services.
So look how God works.
You just see how God did it. And I just would encourage anyone thinking about their Sunday experiences online. Some of our instincts as preachers don't translate. It's like, I really would encourage people, consider getting off the stage, encourage bringing up the lights, encourage talking like, down the barrel, and encourage thinking about the medium and connecting with people. Don't talk to a crowd, talk to one person through the barrel. And all those things that I had to be coached out of in 2013 to do Alpha, I'm realizing are helping us try to figure out how to do church on the online space today.
Yeah. Jason, that was a great way, I think, to close. And I am so encouraged, man. And I'm blessed by this conversation, and I'm excited for you, man. I really am.
Dude, I'd love to stay in touch. Reach out anytime, man.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we will. We'll stay in touch after this video ends. I'll reach out to you or send you a message. But I want you to know again, dude, I'm out here in Ontario. We're not far away, but I'm praying for you.
Thank you.
I just can't wait to see what you guys do with the way, and what this, like, you're in Vancouver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the city of Vancouver is going to look like with the work that you guys are doing and partnering with other churches and other organizations.
Dude, there's like so many good churches already in Vancouver. Like, I think there's need for more, but the most humbling thing for me is like, I can see like a building, and at the base of the building across there is like Coastal Church or West Side Church. And my friend Matt Menzel is pastoring, I think, the most awesome church in Vancouver. And it's just so humbling. And that's so cool is like, Matt's my friend, and he's encouraged us and supported us. And down the roads, Alistair and Brett. Wow. And so, I mean, we're honored to play our part, but we're actually joining something that's been going on here for like, a lot longer. And we're just jumping in. And when we leave, if we don't make it or whatever, there's going to be other great churches and church planters. And we're hoping for more great churches to be planted here. So if you're listening and you're a great leader, come plant a church in Vancouver. We'll welcome you. Definitely.
Jason, again, man, appreciate you so much. Appreciate this conversation. And for those listening and watching this, I know they're going to be blessed.
See you, buddy.
All right. Take care. Bye.